He's in the throw. Fire down! Incomplete down at the goal line by San Diego. Tomlinson off the left side. Tomlinson sidestep. Hello, history books. I think they have to now. Here's Sproles. Sproles inside the 10, inside the 5, and the Chargers win the game.
What? Oh, that's not supposed to be there. Let's get rid of that before. Wow, good start. Welcome to the start of. I forgot that was up before we went on. TLR Mailbag. This is our first ever show, the debut of our mailbag show. This is TLR Roundtable. I will try not to say TLR Mailbag because that's not what we named it. Jamie's here. Craig's here. I'm here, and we're here to answer all your questions. So basically, the format's going to be Craig's going to grab a bunch of questions from the Lightning Round Discord. And if you're not part of the Discord, go do that now and join and be a part of it because it's the best part, and this is the best time to do it. Jamie collected a bunch of questions from Twitter. I collected a bunch of bad tweets. We're going to share it. We are all going to answer our questions. And if you haven't already, our new schedule launched this week. Score More started on Tuesday. Jamie had his brand new walkthrough on Wednesday. We've got this TLR Roundtable today. Tomorrow is going to be I Got 5 on it with Craig. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts. We're there. We're glad you're here. Let's go ahead and start this thing off. So, Craig, I'll just go ahead and put your questions up, and we'll start answering your questions. And if you guys got questions in the chat, go ahead and throw them in there. We can, if we got time, we'll get to those too. All right. So let's start with the first one here, Craig. When I get to it.
All right. Sweet. So from Charul in the Discord, salute to you, my man. Are we overhyping the guard combo of Zion Johnson and Jamari Sawyer? I keep thinking of how hyped and disappointed we were for the combo of Forrest Lamp and Dan Feeney entering their second years after they got drafted together in 2017. Should we be more hopeful that history won't repeat itself? What do you think about that one, Jamie?
I actually think this is a great question because this particular combo is something that's been on my mind all week heading into the Dolphins matchup. Specifically because rewatching that Dolphins game, getting ready for the walkthrough last week, I noticed that the Chargers basically had no plan for Christian Wilkins and Zach Sealer. So having Filer off the field, I think, is a huge deal. But Zion really struggled with Wilkins, and Filer really struggled with Sealer, and those two were switching sides and basically abused the guard combination last year. So I think in these first 2 weeks in particular, we're going to learn a lot about the guard tandem this year. And I think, are we overhyping? I think we have reason to be excited because Zion's moving to his natural position. I think Salyer is more suited to playing guard than he was tackle. And he played tackle pretty damn well for a guy who got thrown in, with the injuries last year. So it's possible we're overhyping, but I would just say we're going to learn a lot about this group. They're going to be tested right out of the gates with two really tough matchups with really good interior defensive lines. And I'm looking to see how they mold and gel together. And I think having Corey Linsley between them, calling out protections and helping them out and getting them in the right positions is going to be a huge help. So I'm excited to see it. And like I said, I think we're going to learn a lot about them right away out of these first 2 weeks.
And I just to jump in, and I know this is your question, Jamie, but also just to tack onto that, we were overhyping Forrest Lamp and Dan Feeney because we were excited about the college tape and where they were drafted. But Salyer is probably a starter in some NFL team right now at left tackle with the way he played last year. And Zion, while to a lesser extent was kind of up and down, it was more about how they played last year than it is just, hyping them up because of where they were drafted and the idea of them. We actually got to see those two play. So while it could be that we're overhyping it, it is more exciting because we got to see how good they played last year So to me, I think that's pretty important.
Yeah, and just to add on one more thing, I think the other thing too is we're going to see a much more well thought out rushing attack with this offensive line this year. I think we're going to see a lot more power, maybe some inside zone, not as much outside zone as we saw last year. And I think those two guys in particular are really going to thrive getting downhill and taking people out at the second level. So I think they're going to be put in a better position to succeed. They're not going to be asked to move laterally so much and cover so much ground left to right, and they'll be allowed to get off the line of scrimmage and eat coming downhill.
Yeah, for sure. And just to throw something else in there, guys already heard me mention that I'm very excited for interior line play this year, which is definitely not something I can say in years past. And seeing Zion moving space as a puller was exciting during the preseason. So I would be just fine with him doing a little bit more of that in the upcoming year. So moving on to the next one from Password is Matt. Do you believe in Staley in 2023 as the defensive play caller? What do you say to that, Garrett?
I thought you were going to ask, do you believe his password is actually Matt? Because if it is, we could check that out real quick.
I sure hope not, man. I sure hope not.
Don't put it out like. But is he so smart that we're not going to actually try it out, and that he thinks he's just all fooling us? I don't know.
Could be case sensitive too. You never know.
Yeah, true. Do we believe in Staley in 2023 as defense? This is hard for me because in 2021, we had talked about how he didn't really have his personnel. It wasn't really like his defense to run his system. In 2022, he got his guys. He put a bunch of his guys together in free agency, and then they were wrecked by injury. So that's not an excuse because Staley's defense hasn't been good enough, but I don't think it's enough for me to not believe in Staley quite yet. So I would say I am still a believer, but I'm somewhere on the fringe right now. That could be swayed very, very easily. Are you guys in this? Because this was tough when I saw this one.
Yeah. So I think one thing that just to add on to what Garrett said, I think if we were just looking at the early part of the 2022 season, I would say, no, I don't believe in him. But I think if you look at the game plans that he put together in the second half of the season, they gave the 49ers trouble. They basically shut down the Dolphins, barring a fumble return for a touchdown and Michael Davis falling him down on a deep ball that he probably either tips or picks off if he's on his feet. They had a lot of success, and it seemed like they had a simplified opponent-specific game plan pretty much every week heading down the last, 6, 7, 8 weeks of the season last year. So, and now they've got everybody back. And I think if Staley can resist the urge to get more complicated and kind of whittle down what he's asking everybody to do and keep them doing what they do well, instead of, for example, having Derwin play 6 positions at one time, and just keep things simple, I think I have faith in him. But the thing is we haven't seen him do that yet. So can he take what he learned from last year, translate it to a full year, and simplify? If he can, then I have a lot of faith, but we need to see it.
I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt just to sprinkle this on the top here, fellas, because of how many guys were missing throughout the course of last season.
Yeah.
Every team deals with injuries, but the Chargers don't just deal with injuries. It's almost always injuries to their most important players. So Staley had to make do on the defensive side of the ball. And in some games, as Jamie spoke to, he came up pretty big, especially that Dolphins game, which gives me hope. And also there's the question of how much input Derek Ainsley is going to have in the defense as well, and how much play calling is he going to be doing, as Staley did pass off some of that responsibility during the preseason. So they may be working more in tandem than what you've seen from Staley in his first 2 years.
And I think that's a really good point. One that I wanted to make and I forgot is that with Ainsley taking on more responsibilities and them elevating him, and obviously wanting to keep him, they value him. They gave him an advanced title, and they're giving him more responsibilities. I think we could be seeing Staley realize that he doesn't necessarily need to be calling the defensive plays in order for the team to be successful. He can be involved in the game planning, but let somebody else handle the minutia on game day. And that's, to me, is growth in Staley as a coach. So that's something that we see, and that takes shape over the course of the season, where Ainsley is slowly but surely calling more and more of the plays, and Staley is managing the big picture for the team on game day and making the big in-game decisions, then I think we could see some really good things.
All righty. Number 3, Charger Berries. So, of the practice squad additions, which players are most likely to suit up for the Chargers eventually replace someone on the current 53? What you got there, Jamie?
I think there are probably 5 guys on the practice squad that have a shot to be playing with the Chargers at some point, just depending on injuries and circumstances. I would say the one that jumps out to me, who I would say is almost guaranteed to be up on the quote unquote main roster, the 53 at some point, is Christian Covington, because he's been around, he knows the system, they know him, he can play multiple techniques on the defensive line, and somebody's going to get hurt at some point. So Covington, to me, is probably the first guy that's going to get called up, and he'll probably be – they were using him as like a situational piece last year where they thought he was a really good matchup against the Chiefs, and we could see more of that this year if he stays healthy. And he actually played pretty well in that role where they were using him in specific situations against certain teams before he got hurt. Other guys that stood out to me looking at the list, I could see Gerard Clark probably winding up on the roster at some point. Keelan Doss. Name I would look out for is Nick Vannett. I could see him very easily winding up on the 53 at some point. So that's just a few names that came to me.
You might as well put all of them in there.
Hey, there's 14 guys on the list, right?
Yeah. I think 17, but yeah, I thought you were going to go all in. Do you have a different name?
Did you do that on purpose?
No, but let's go ahead and make it seem like I really.
You just slid that in there. It was pretty slick, though. Either way.
Do you have a different name, Craig?
Actually, the primary guy I was looking at was Jared Clark, not just because I like him, but because of when you think about on the interior of the defense and some of the teams the Chargers are going to have to play that are very run-centric, specifically the Titans. You may need to get some girth in there in the event that you're going to have guys like, Mr. Henry and some other larger backs that are definitely going to be cramming it down your throat. Pause again. In the middle of defense. So anyway, this is an adult show. I'm trying my best, but there's just this immature side of me that I can't let go.
Oh, it's about to get real adult when we get into questions.
Oh yes, this is true. So Gerard Clark. Gerard Clark's the primary guy that I have my eye on, is someone who could potentially come up if the Chargers are, especially if they're finding themselves where they're getting gashed weekly. He's a bigger body that can step in there and take on double teams and plug them holes.
Jamie mentioned Nick Vannett, but that was the first name that I gravitated towards. It's just his whole career he's been a blocking tight end. The Chargers don't have really good blocking tight ends on the roster. It's pretty thin as it is. That makes a lot of sense. The other one is that safety that they picked up, Marlowe. He's a veteran. They picked him up for some reason, and they obviously don't see their depth as good as I think some do. So I think he could be like a dark horse. But yeah, all those names make a ton of sense. All right, Craig. How about you answer this next one?
Oh, check it out. Yeah, no worries. So JT Woods' mental disorder. And you know what? I would like to say that maybe I was the inspiration for that username, for that handle, potentially. Correct me if I'm wrong, Fab.
Oh, dude. I didn't know what you were talking about. I did not see the username.
Yeah. So I don't want to just jump out of the window.
It's mental disorder, and I'm like, what are we doing?
Sorry, love how you thought I was going off the rails there.
Yeah.
It's been known to happen. Okay, but no, this one is all on Fab. So question here looks like there are multiple. What's most likely and least likely to happen? JT Woods fulfills the vision of the Chargers. The Chargers had for him and becomes an elite high safety, racking up a league.
Oh, he froze. I'll keep reading it for you. There, Jamie?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, all right. So the question was, JT Woods, log back in when you can, Craig. JT Woods fulfills the vision the Chargers had for him and becomes an elite high safety, racking up a league-leading 9 interceptions. Or Quentin Johnston becomes the new deep ball threat and wins Offensive Rookie of the Year after Mike Williams has a season-ending back injury in week 1. Or Kenneth Murray gets benched in favor of Dion Henley and forces his way off the team, a la Jerry Tillery. I know this is obviously tongue in cheek, most of it, but what do you think is most likely to least likely?
I would say the most likely to happen is Dion Henry replacing Kenneth Murray.
Mm-hmm.
It'll probably happen. I think it happens probably by midseason, if not sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming health and production. If Henley plays the way I think he will, particularly in coverage, I think it'll be hard to keep him off the field. So, to me, Henley is it's an easy one as the most likely one. The other two both seem like pretty long shots.
Yeah.
I would say if I had to go with absolute least likely this year, I would probably have to go with JT Woods recording 9 interceptions and being an elite high safety this year. I just don't see it. But I also really don't see Quentin Johnston being offensive rookie of the year, whether Mike Williams is hurt or not. So
yeah. He's got, so there's 3 rookie quarterbacks, which normally win the awards. Just one of them have to play good. You've got Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs, who are going to be carrying the load for their teams. I mean, I just don't. And then you add in, JSN and Zay Flowers, and then, you're kind of Jordan Addison, and then he's not going to be close to that offensive rookie.
And then you look at the Chargers roster, and if Mike is hurt, that means more reps for Joshua Palmer, even though it does mean more reps for Quentin Johnston. I just, the path to an offensive rookie of the year for Quentin Johnston just seems like a really difficult one, considering internal and external factors. It just doesn't seem likely. But for me, JT Woods is probably the least likely, just based on, even though he's shown some improvement, he was better at tackling. I think his eye discipline is getting better. He's covering ground and getting to where he needs to be much better than he was last year. But that seems like a long shot to me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know he teed up this last one, so I don't want to do it without him while he gets his stuff together. But why don't you and I start this, start the Twitter questions. Oh, he might have just got back on. Let's see. You there, Craig?
There he is.
Yeah, I am. And you guys noticed I got so pissed that I dropped off, knocked my gauge.
You knocking stuff off the wall.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, Craig.
Anyway.
Well, Jamie and I kind of went through this. What is the most likely and least likely in this situation? I already read it, so just go ahead and answer it.
Yeah, probably that of the 3, Henley forces his way onto the field at some point ahead of Murray. I was going to roll with the Quentin Johnston option because, I mean, the JT Woods thing, as nice as he's looked throughout the preseason, I'm just not quite there yet. And I just don't know if Johnston resolves the drops issues that he has. I hope that he does. If so, and I'm proven wrong, and he's the guy that ends up being the choice here, the correct choice, then I'm all for it. But for right now, the most obvious to me feels like Dion Henley over Murray.
And to be honest, given a reputation for being negative, I'm not really interested in saying that Mike is going to have a season-ending back injury week 1. So I'm steering clear of that one.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about any injuries. I'm not mentioning any of that crap.
Yeah,
so I'm just pretending that wasn't there.
Yeah, all that tongue-in-cheek stuff we left aside.
Tempting fate.
All right, Craig. Here we go. Oh, we didn't want to do it without you. So let's tee up here. The last one on Discord from Junius.
Junius, I especially love this question, man, because just feels right for this show, right? If Dicker was a flavor at Baskin Robbins, what flavor would he be? I will let you gentlemen take a stab at this one first. What do you think, Garrett?
Well, of course, I went and thought about this for probably the most out of anything else. And the best one I got is mint chocolate Chippendales, which I think works best for Cameron Dicker. I had another one that I don't think is appropriate for the show. So I won't use that one. But that was the best one I had. Do you guys have one better? Because I got no reaction and just like eyeball staring at me. So is there like a better one that you guys have that I can stare at you guys about? Or
I would have felt better if you gave, like, if you didn't say that you had one that was a little bit more risque. Now I'm rolling my eyes at you a little bit.
Okay.
But the first one, it's fine. If you didn't say the second part, then I would have been all in with you.
Okay.
I'm gonna roll with pralines and cream. So, got some tasty, tasty parts in there, tasty bits. It's creamy. Overall delicious. It's hard to go wrong. It's hard to go wrong. I think it's a pretty delectable selection, and that's what I'm rolling with. What you got, Jamie?
Jamie? He's having to do it on the spot. It's not going to happen, is it?
After seconds of deep reflection, I'll say Rocky Road.
Okay, now that is the play on the one that I was going to do. But if you took the last word and added another word next to it, which is a sex act in a car, you would get a bonus point for my decision that I did not do on this show. Knock your other one off. I said I wouldn't do it. All right.
I wish you did.
Well, you guys could put it together. All right, let's move on to Twitter.
All right. So first question, and I see I mistyped this, but based on the success so many top quarterbacks are having with offensive-minded head coaches, should we want Kellen Moore to be the Chargers head coach so Justin Herbert doesn't have to deal with a revolving door in terms of offensive play callers? Garrett, what do you think?
Man, I thought you were going to throw it to Craig since he's been gone. But I would say I don't know that we want Kellen Moore to be the head coach. I would say we'd have to see how Herbert does. If he has like a career year, like blows up, the defense stinks, Staley's fired, I could probably see it. But I think to me, it depends on like how good Herbert was under Moore. If he was just like pretty good, I feel like you can fill in probably a better head coach candidate. And I don't know who would be available at that point, but I understand the continuity and wanting to keep the offensive coordinator here more than just 1 year, not constantly change him like Oregon did back when he was in college. But I could see it. I'm not sure I would love it unless Herbert just blows up this year. Then I could make an argument for it.
How about you, Craig?
I'd be perfectly fine with Kellen Moore being the next head coach, not just for continuity purposes, but actually mainly for continuity purposes because of Herbert, because this is something that he's dealt with throughout his entire career dating back to college. So just having someone there that understands the game much like he does. I mean, Staley was a former college quarterback also, but his claim to fame is his defensive side of the ball. I could totally see Kellen Moore being the option in the event that Staley were to be let go. I would like to see this iteration of the coaching staff stick around as long as humanly possible. But if something were to go wrong and Staley has to be given his pink slip, then yeah, I would absolutely like it to be Moore. And also, like you mentioned, Garrett, I understand like if he doesn't just set the world on fire the first year, that's okay to me. If he plays, I'd say better than he did last year, all things considered, injuries, guys missing. It's still somewhat of an improvement, but it's also just his first year in the system. So we allow him some time to grow and develop with Moore. And I think Kellen probably sticks around a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think if we see Kellen Moore as the head coach, I think it's going to be as an interim head coach because things were so bad this year that Staley got fired during the season. If they fire Staley at the end of the season, I think they blow everybody out, including Moore. So the chances of him sticking as a head coach, if Staley gets fired at the end of the year, I think are pretty slim. I get wanting the continuity. If things are so bad that Staley gets fired, then what kind of continuity are we actually protecting outside of Moore just sticking around because he's the offensive play caller? So I'm not sure I see a scenario really right now where he winds up the head coach outside of possibly being an interim at the end of the year. I just think if they're done with Staley, they're done with the whole staff and they're going to start over. But I do understand wanting the continuity, and I think it's going to be important to find, if Staley doesn't pan out and he doesn't last beyond this year and next year, it's going to be really important to find probably an offensive minded head coach and an offensive coordinator who are on the same page, that it's the head coach's system, so that they can start to develop some kind of continuity for Herbert, because he has had so many different quarterbacks coaches and head coaches and offensive coordinators dating all the way back to Oregon that, I mean, I've lost count.
Yeah.
All right.
Next one is from Antonio G. From Grillo 1928. He says, how reliable is the Chargers O-line depth? Would it be wise to address some bargain free agents or ride out with rookies? Thanks a lot, guys. Craig, what do you think?
I feel a little bit better about the offensive line depth than I have in the past, particularly on the interior. McFadden being available now as a guy who's got some experience playing inside and out helps. Will Clapp didn't set the world on fire, but he's someone that the Chargers believe in. He's got a couple years in the system, and at times he was at least serviceable. I mean, where we run into the problem is going to be at the tackle spot. Foster Sorrell is not someone that I would like to see taking regular snaps, but if there's an opportunity to potentially upgrade at a backup tackle spot, then sure. So again, I feel a lot better about the interior based on some of the draft picks and what's currently on the roster with guys who've cross-trained, but I think they should absolutely, look at maybe another vet tackle in the event that one becomes available.
Garrett?
Yeah, I mean, basically, you could probably upgrade Foster Sorrell and maybe Brendan Hymas, but outside of that, the depth is better than it's been in the past, and also you've got two guys in Jamari Salyer and Jordan McFadden who could play both guard and tackle. So you've got some real flexibility in this line. And so really, yeah, it'd be nice to have a veteran swing tackle, maybe upgrading Brendan Hymas. But outside of that, they're pretty good right now.
Yeah, I would just qualify my answer by saying that whose offensive line depth is reliable in the NFL? I mean, offensive line depth in the NFL on a whole is pretty bad. Most teams have, at best, two offensive tackles they can count on in the starting lineup, and their backups are not very good. And Foster Sorrell's shown some improvement. So I think, Sorrell is one guy I wouldn't mind upgrading. I don't really trust Will Clapp personally, but I think if things don't work out with him, you could kick McFadden inside, you could kick Hymas inside. I think there are guys that you could cross-train to play some center. And I think that's probably coming sooner rather than later. Because to me, Clapp, I think he's a liability as a blocker, but I think even more than that, I think the protections and the checks at the line are an issue for him. And that's why so many things break down when he's in the lineup. As soon as Lindsley comes out, they seem to lose all recognition and adjustments at the line of scrimmage with Will Clapp in there. And that's a little concerning considering he is a veteran. But outside of Sorrell and Clapp, I'm not gonna complain too much about Hymas as the 9th offensive lineman. We'll see what he does. It seems like maybe they're trying to develop him for a long-term role. We'll see how that pans out. But I like McFadden. I think they've got some interesting depth on the practice squad, and Bailey, who flashed at times in the preseason. So I think they've got enough pieces there that they can piece things together if they get themselves in trouble. And there's a lot of versatility, guys who can play multiple positions. So I would say their depth is better than it's been, I think, probably since we started doing the show, Garrett. Mm-hmm. And it's not great, but nobody has 9 offensive linemen they can trust when the starters start going down. So you got to kind of put that in perspective. Next question is from Downtown Chair. He says, with the tight end room looking how it is, should we not have gotten rid of Hunter Henry? And should they take someone like Brock Bowers or Patrick Herbert in the draft? Craig, what do you think?
So Patrick Herbert, are we talking Herbert's brother? Is he still at Oregon? Is that Patrick Herbert? I don't
know.
quite remember.
Yeah, I haven't
Okay.
started my college.
Yeah,
thing yet.
I think that might be Herbert's brother, who's a tight end at Oregon. But anyway, as far as Hunter Henry is concerned, I know that for the most part, a lot of fans were upset that they, kind of allowed him to go. But in the grand scheme of things, I just don't think they wanted to pay him what they felt like or what he felt like maybe he was worth. There are certain positions that Chargers do place premium on. I don't think tight end, at that point in time was one that they were. Would it be nice to have Hunter Henry around? Sure. Someone who could be maybe a reliable target within the red zone. But currently, with the way the room is, it would be nice to have more of a number one tight end who's good at both blocking and receiving. But if you're talking like Brock Bowers, then the Chargers are picking very high, and that is not a good thing. And I don't see them utilizing any draft capital to move up that high in the draft unless Brock Bowers, for some reason, were to tank this year and then declare. So, as far as Hunter Henry goes, it's been gone for a little while now. He's kind of in the rearview mirror, but Brock Bowers, as nice as he would be as a part of this offense, there's almost no chance the Chargers have a shot at him.
Just to give you guys, I'm watching the game that's going on right now, and the Lions just fake punted from their own 15 and got it. That's ballsy.
Huh.
It was like fourth and
that's more Staley than Staley. Wait, well, yeah. What was it? Fourth and what?
It was like fourth and like 3 or 4
from their own 15.
From their own 15, like the punter's on the like 3, and they short snapped it anyway. Yeah, so I don't know that getting rid of Herbert is really that, or Henry. Don't get rid of Herbert, please. Henry. Hunter Henry is really that big of an issue. I mean, he's proven that he can't stay healthy throughout his career, and I think he's eclipsed like 650 once in his career. So it's not like, he's the person that's going to push this offense over the edge. Yes, I would probably like him more than Gerald Everett at the moment, but with that said, they're going to need to draft. They needed to draft a tight end like the last couple years. So, and Gerald Everett's a free agent. So, quite honestly, they're going to probably need to take a tight end and sign a tight end in free agency. And this might possibly be the biggest hole to fill in free agency next offseason, just because it's already thin as it is. And Gerald Everett, your starter, is going to be a free agent.
Yeah, I think, if you look at the numbers, I'm pretty sure Everett actually outproduced Henry last year. Henry had a higher yards per catch average, but Everett had more receptions and more yards. I think they had the same number of touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. And I would say that if the offense changes in the ways that we expect it to change, I think they will find more ways to get the ball to Everett in the intermediate passing game up the seams. So I could see him putting up more yards per catch, and maybe being even more valuable in the red zone than he was last year. So I don't think they really necessarily lost anything going from Henry to Everett outside of name recognition and fan favorite. I think Everett can more than simulate, if not outproduce Henry's production this year. So I'm not really worried about that. I think the issue is with the depth in the tight end group, and not knowing if Parham can stay healthy. Knowing but not seeming to care that McKitty can't play football. And not knowing yet what you have in Stone Smart. So those are the concerns to me. We know last year, starting I think as early as the 3rd round, they had tight ends that they wanted to draft in every round of the draft, from rounds 3 through 7, and they just didn't fall to them. So they know it's a need. They're going to be looking for it. I would expect a tight end probably in the first 3 rounds next year, and probably some sort of a signing in free agency. I can't see them running back next year with Parham, McKitty, and Smart, especially with Everett leaving. So I could see 2, maybe even 3 new tight ends coming in next year, one way or another. It is a concern this year for sure, but I don't think they lost anything with Henry. He played 17 games last year, but only started 10, and he's always hurt. So yes, they need help. They're not going to get their hands on Bowers unless they're drafting in the top 5 to 10, probably. I haven't seen Patrick Herbert play, so I can't speak to that.
Yeah.
But they will definitely draft somebody next year. No doubt about it, and probably sign at least one on some level in free agency.
So, Jamie, today, would you take Gerald Everett over Hunter Henry in this system?
Yeah, I would. I don't think you lose anything. And Everett
I
might
think it's
actually
pretty close anyway, but
yeah, Everett might be the better athlete, and he might be able to be more productive in terms of creating explosive plays with run after the catch if they use him properly in the new offense.
Craig, you feel the
just
same?
to piggybacking off that, I think listening to Jamie talk about it brought it to my mind that just based on the type of athlete that Everett is and the way that this offense utilizes space, I think he'll actually be a pretty big contributor in the passing game. Of course, he's not going to be the best blocker, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe exceed his numbers, at least from a yardage perspective from last year. The offense is kind of set up for that. And having as many options as you have in the passing game, not just at wide receiver, but also with Eckler in the backfield, is probably going to open up some space for Everett to operate.
All right.
Yep. This one is from Chino Dr. 12. Do you think Gilman holds the free safety job during the whole season, or does Woods or Finley take it? Garrett, what do you think?
Oh, I think it's Alohi Gilman's job. I mean, barring any injury, obviously, but yeah, I do not see them giving that job to Woods or to Finley. And quite honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Dean Marlowe makes it over those two anyway. But regardless, I mean, this is his spot, and I think they're going to roll with him all season long, unless the wheels absolutely fall off.
Yep. Craig, what do you think?
Yeah, so just kind of echoing Garrett here, health is going to be the main thing. If he can stay healthy, it's his position. Outside of that, I don't necessarily see Woods overtaking the job. I could see some situations where they may be used interchangeably, or where Woods may take a few snaps in certain types of games, depending on the opponent. We know that Alohi has some athletic limitations where that is more so JT Woods' strong suit. Right now, Gilman is the more heady player of the two. But I think it's his job. You'll see Woods mixed in there a little bit, but I don't foresee Gilman losing the job to Woods unless something catastrophic happens.
Yeah. And by the way, something that broke while we were recording, Joe Burrow just signed an extension, 5-year, $275. So he already surpassed Herbert, and Chargers already got a discount on getting that deal done first. Always get that deal done first when you're dealing with quarterbacks, man. Always.
So with regard to this question, in my opinion, I think Gilman holds the job. You might see some matchup specific switches. Woods is going to get sprinkled in. I think he's going to be the first safety on the field when they have three safeties. When they're moving Derwin down into the box and they want to play too high, you'll see Woods come in. Woods, I think most people who listen to the show, they know how I feel about Gilman. I'm not a huge Gilman fan. I never have been. I think there are some pretty big limitations, but in rewatching last year's Dolphins game in preparation for the walkthrough last week, I actually gained some respect for him. He was literally calling the Dolphins offense as they broke the huddle based on personnel groupings and formations. He knew exactly where the ball was going before the ball was even snapped. A lot of times before the Dolphins were even set. He and Murray actually were both calling the Dolphins offense before they got to the line of scrimmage. So he's a guy who, like Craig said, he used the word heady. I think that's what they like about him. He knows what's going on. He knows where he needs to be. Can he always get to where he needs to be? I think that's the question. I think there are opportunities to take advantage of him, particularly in single high, if you're asking him to cover the whole field at the back end. But I think they're going to lean on him being the veteran, and they're going to try to sprinkle Woods in and use him in specific situations to set him up for success. I don't think Woods is anywhere near ready to be on the field or take that job from Gilman. So I don't see that happening at all. I think Woods will be, he'll probably play 15 to 20 snaps a game. Maybe against certain opponents, he'll play 25 to 30 snaps a game, but usually that'll be with Gilman on the field with him. And if he plays well, maybe he can earn more snaps. But I'd be shocked if he takes a job from Gilman.
All right. Jamie, why don't you lead us off here on this last part of your tweet?
All right. This question is from Steven Paisano. How many snaps do you expect Quentin Johnston to get in the first half of the season, and how many towards the end of the season? So Johnston, I know there was talk about him, mostly from him, saying he was already the third wide receiver on the team before training camp even broke. But it looks, at least on the first depth chart, the Chargers issued, and who knows what that's worth. Right now, Joshua Palmer is the third wide receiver, and I think Johnston and Palmer are going to rotate at wide receiver 3 quite a bit all season long, and they're going to split snaps. But you have Palmer entering year 3, coming off a 70-yard or a 70-catch, almost 700-yard season. You would expect him to take a step forward and fight for his job. So I would say you'll probably see a pretty even split. If the Chargers are running, 60 to 65 snaps a game, you'll probably see the two of them running. They'll probably play a lot of 3 wide receiver. So you'll probably see the two of them running 20 to 25 snaps a game, with one of them maybe getting more here or there just based on matchups and who's performing well. So I think their snaps will be pretty even for the majority of the season. And if Johnston is catching the ball well, stretching the field and making plays after the catch, then he could start to take some of those snaps. But I think it's going to take a while. He's going to have to fight for that. I think they're going to make him earn it. And they should, because Palmer played really well last year. He was asked to be wide receiver 1, I think, way more than anybody expected him to last year with all the injuries. He played really well. He was a big reason why they won that Falcons game last year with the plays he made down the stretch. So he's earned the right to have that number 3 wide receiver spot, and I think it's smart to make Johnston earn it. He's going to play because they play their first round picks, but I think you got to make him earn the bulk of those snaps. Craig,
So
what do you think?
What do you think? Sorry, what do you think at the end of the season, though?
End of the season?
Yeah. So if he's 25 to start, because that's around the number that I was saying, second half of the season, do you think there's a bump or stays the same?
I think it'll be kind of in that 25 to 30 snap range the majority of the season. Maybe you see him spike up towards 35 if he's playing really well. But yeah, I would say probably somewhere for the majority of the season in that 25 to 30 snap range, just depending on matchups and who's playing well and how the games are going.
Okay.
Craig, what do you think?
Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to basically say pretty much the same throughout as far as the numbers is concerned, about like 25 to 30. And the reason why I say that, and I don't think it's been addressed here, Jamie actually alluded to it, that Johnston came out of rookie minicamp, saying that he had that wide receiver 3 spot on lock. And we haven't really heard much of it since then. We've seen Palmer come back from injury, perform very well in camp. Johnston's been up and down. So I think it's pretty safe to say him being wide receiver 4 going into the year is something that he's going to have, a little bit of a hill to climb as far as surpassing Palmer there. But I don't see Palmer letting that spot go unless there's an injury that causes Johnston to take on more snaps. Palmer seems like he's on a bit of a mission this year to prove a point. He did step up, having to play some number 1 snaps, being the primary wide receiver last year. And I think the Chargers took notice of that, and they're going to give him every opportunity to keep his job. Really not certain as to why Johnston just assumed he would be the wide receiver 3 going into the year, unless it was something he was told. But just based off of performance and the consistency that was shown in camp, I can't see that happening going into the year. So I would say, yeah, on average, somewhere in between 25 to 30 snaps throughout. Wouldn't be surprised to see him start off lower on the lower end, maybe around 18 to 20, 22 snaps, and then gradually build up. But I think that Palmer's going to hold on to that snap count pretty much throughout the season as far as the majority of them, but they'll be around the same amount come the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't have really anything to add, other than the fact that they didn't play Palmer in the preseason at all. So it's not like they have any real issues with him going forward. It seems like they're pretty comfortable with him, and he's going to have a role. So, but my number's the same as you guys. All right, let's find the other stuff. Man, We have loaded everything up. Okay. Now we can't present anything else because we've gone over the max. What do we do here, guys?
Can't you remove stuff and put
Hold
stuff
on,
in
hold
its
on,
place?
hold on. Scratch that. Okay, so let's move on to bad tweets. All right, so I pulled 3. Basically, I was just looking for the worst tweets this offseason. So here's a story in 2 parts. First up here, the Browns. Cade York. They draft Cade York. He makes a field goal in preseason, and they tweet out, "That's why you draft a kicker." Beautiful. Love your support for your kicker.
Of course, it's the Browns, by the way.
During cuts, yikes, they released Cade York because of the trade with the Chargers. They picked up Dustin Hopkins. Chargers got the 7th-round pick, but oh boy. Tweet about give him his respect. That's why you draft a kicker. Well, you cut your kicker that you drafted, and you picked up the veteran. So, man, oh man. So that is your NFL bad tweet this offseason so far. Just
screenshots live forever.
I love that shit. Like the time when the Cardinals tweeted out like Josh Rosen is our guy, and they made a giant graphic about it, and then he didn't start another game. That stuff I love. So this stuff, even though it's kicker talk and we don't really do kicker talk, but showing love to your kicker, that's why you drafted him, and then releasing him a couple weeks later, man, that's brutal.
This isn't kicker talk. This is making fun of kicker talk, which is right up our alley.
Yes. That you're right. That is our wheelhouse. All right, next up. And by the way, for this bad tweet segment, we are keeping anonymity. I mean, here you see the guys, the football transaction thing, but the people who tweet this out might not have as good of a sense of humor as we do. So we don't want to include their name. We don't want to call them out. Just make fun of the ideas.
What they're saying.
These people had. And so here's one, and this one's from, the Chargers versus the Dolphins. And man, we had a ton of ammo for these Dolphins fans because they have some bad ass takes. But here's one from some Dolphin fan. Bottom line is this. We can't, or wait, hold on. This is
from a Chargers fan.
Let's go to a Dolphins fan. Herbert, so some GPA football who aggregates tweets is like, do the Dolphins regret taking Tua over Justin Herbert? And this Dolphin fan said, Herbert is more durable, has the size and athleticism of a prototypical QB, can make every throw. Tua has elite pocket presence, can manipulate at a higher caliber, and is the most anticipatory thrower I've ever seen. Would I take Herbert over Tua now? No. Should we have? Yes. Now that we have spent all the money creating a better team for specifically Tua, there's no better quarterback for this offseason or for this offense than Tua. Hashtag fins up. Boy, can we dissect this one.
So can we just So let's just focus on the explanation of why Tua is better than Herbert, because there are some logical fallacies in here that I have a problem with. Elite pocket presence, manipulated a higher caliber, and anticipatory thrower. This is a guy who missed how many games because of a concussion, because he holds the ball and won't give up on plays and can't get the ball out on time and can't throw the ball to the perimeter. Oh, and by the way, he basically has to have receivers wide open in the middle of the field and see them open in order to hit them. So, yeah, this is all it's fantasy.
Tomfoolery.
Yeah. Yeah. Most anticipatory thrower I've ever seen. I mean, it's almost like he only watches Dolphins game because if you had eyes,
because he's been watching Jay Fiedler for the last 20 years.
Yeah. There's probably 10 better
Jay
anticipatory throwers in the NFL, including the guy that you're talking about, Justin Herbert. And the line where would I take Herbert over Tua now? No. Should we have? Yes. What? What are you talking about? You're going against yourself. None of that makes any sense. You can't say I would have definitely drafted Herbert, but I don't want him now. What are you talking about? You would draft Justin Herbert and then release him, bring Tua in for today and this season? You're out of your mind. This is homerism at its finest. This is a terrible, terrible take. Oh my God.
Not to mention,
it's all word salad. He's literally just jumbling a bunch of phrases together that he thinks sounds like football speak. And it's the most intelligent, dumbest set of comments ever made. Just sounds great, but from a logical standpoint, none of it makes sense. Like, you're calling him arguably the most best anticipatory passer in the league. Well, here's the thing: he can only throw on anticipate. I can't even talk.
Yeah.
He can only throw off of anticipation because he's got a noodle for an arm. You're not going to throw off schedule. He can't throw late because it's going to be a pick. He can't throw outside to the numbers. Everything in that offense is based off of timing and rhythm. There's a reason for that. Not because it's just the best way to run that offense. It's because the dude can't throw the ball more than 20 yards without it hanging up for an extra 2 to 3 seconds. So no, I get it. You love your team. You're going to make excuses for them. But I say this all the time, man. If you're not going to keep it real, at least keep it realistic. That was stupid.
Yeah. And by the way, none of which what he said is provable. It's all just kind of generalities of football talk. It's not about any percentages, any stats, anything that you can measure with. It's just pocket presence, can manipulate at a higher caliber, can anticipate better. I mean, none of those are real things that you can measure. That's just things you say. And by the way, they're not true.
And what's he manipulating? The pocket? Because he doesn't manipulate the pocket better than Herbert does.
No.
I don't think anybody avoids sacks the way Herbert does.
No.
Yeah, it's all garbage. And not to mention, if you took that Dolphins offense and you gave Herbert, Waddle,
and Tyreek Hill,
and just said, just throw the ball deep.
Yeah.
How many points would that team put up?
More than the Chiefs, probably.
I mean, to say that that there's no better quarterback for that offense than Tua is just.
I mean, there's like homerism, and then just like being flat out like in a different planet. There's like, this is not even like in the world of homerism anymore.
I figured it out. It's the Dolphins' fault that we talk about Tua like this. Because, I mean, he's not a bad quarterback. He's just not what they want to make him out to be. And unfortunately, we have to go in on ridiculous comments like this, and it sounds like we're hating on Tua. But it's not us, dude. It's the people who are supporting you. Apparently, they drink a lot and then get on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some kind of rivalry now with Dolphins fans and Chargers fans. But, man, there's some real idiots in the Dolphin world going through these tweets. Speaking of which, let's move on to now Charger fans. And we now have a tweet from a Charger fan who says already, bottom line is this: if we can't beat the Dolphins at home when we're completely healthy and with a new OC, and Miami is on the road with injuries already in certain areas and without Jalen Ramsey, then we don't deserve to be in the mix at all. Then all the offseason talk is just that, talk. But we will prevail. I expect the Chargers to win Sunday. Again, you talk all this shit, and then you go, but they're going to win anyway. But already giving up on the Chargers after week 1 is something else. And people say that we're negative, even though we feel we're more realistic. This is just kind of puts it more in perspective here. This is negativity.
This feels like hedging to the utmost. Like, you're coming on here and you're saying like everything that could possibly go wrong, but then you want to make sure that you don't sound like you're completely dumping on the team. So I fully expect us to win. Nothing about that. I mean, this sounds super bipolar, but who am I to judge? Seriously though, and honestly, look, if you're judging the totality of a season off of a week 1 performance, I don't know what else to tell you. Every year is a life of its own. We don't know what to expect coming into this game. The Dolphins could have a completely different game plan. They may not function similarly to what they did last season. I would imagine it's probably not the best idea that they do. These guys get paid millions of dollars to come up with game plans to win games. They don't make it a practice to lose them. So again, we don't know what we're facing until we get into about a half of football, come in, make some adjustments, get into the second half before you start making any proclamations. But even still, like 1 game, 1 week, come on now. Come on.
Yeah.
And, Craig mentioned it. It's week 1. We don't know what to expect. There are a lot of changes. The starters didn't play at all in the preseason. I think the Chargers are going to win. I'm not saying they're going to lose, but if ever there was a reason that you could look at and say, it might take them a while to get started, it's another new offense, another new OC with the starters not playing in the preseason. It could take some time to knock the rust off. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I want to be very clear. I think the Chargers are going to win this game, but the way he worded that is like, you don't realize that the complexities of introducing a new offensive system, a new play caller, against a defense that has a defensive scheme that's given Herbert problems in the past. I mean, there's a lot of things here that could go wrong, but that complexity of introducing the new offense, I think, is he's overlooking how that could slow things down early in the season potentially.
And GMs and coaches, and I've mentioned this in the podcast all the time. GMs and coaches talk about all the time that after the first month, you don't really know how good your team is. Like that first 4 games, you're still figuring stuff out, where people's roles are, what your game plan is, offensively, defensively. If you're giving up on the season, a 17-game season on 1 week, you're crazy, especially the first week. That is insane. And Craig nailed it. This is hedging at its best. If you're going to talk your shit, talk it. Don't come back and go, well, but I think they're going to win. Bro, if the season's over, then it's over. Just go with it. Don't worry about what these Twitter folks are going to tell you about whether you're being too negative or, you're not a real Chargers fan or whatever, because take it from us, we get that shit all the time. Just go and back your own opinion. This is
Have
crazy.
the courage of your own conviction, man. Just go with it.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. So speaking of wins and losses and how the Chargers are going to do this season, Jamie, let's go over win-loss predictions here, okay? Preseason's up here too, but let's just go quickly. You don't have to, name why they're going to win or why they're going to lose, but let's go ahead and give your record prediction. I'll tally it up while you go. So, all right. Dolphins, they're winning or Chargers going to win because you just said that.
I believe the Chargers win that game. I think they beat the Titans. I think they beat the Vikings, which means, of course, they have to lose to the Raiders going into the bye week after starting 3-0. Cowboys, that's a tough one. I'm going to say prime time in Dallas.
Revenge game for Kellen Moore.
I'll go with the W there. I'm tempted to say loss, but I'll go with the W. I think they lose to the Chiefs at Arrowhead. The Bears feel like a trap game, potentially looking ahead to a game with the Jets on primetime. Actually, the Bears game is a primetime game too. Damn, lots of primetime games.
Ton of them.
What, 6, right?
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah, you might be right.
3 out of 4 there in one stretch. I will say they lose to the Bears because that's just the Chargers thing to do. Jets, I think they beat the Jets. I don't think the Jets are going to be as good as people are making them out to be. Lions, that seems like a really high-scoring affair. That's in Detroit. Morning start. I'll say the Chargers lose that one. I think they beat the Packers. I think they probably lose to the Ravens, assuming Jackson's healthy. Patriots, I don't like their chances against the Patriots. I think they'll have something for them. So I'll say they lose to the Patriots.
Yuck.
They beat the Broncos. They beat the Raiders. They lose to the Bills. They beat the Broncos, and they beat the Chiefs in Week 18.
Woo, 10-6. You got them 10-6. Craig and I had. Did we have 11-5?
I think we were 11. I think we might have both been 11-5.
Yeah, we both were the same
games.
for sure.
Wait,
yeah.
They're playing 17 games, so I should be at
11-6.
11-6.
Yeah, I
did
think we
miss
had him
one?
at 11.
We had him at 11-6, and Jamie's got him at 10-7. Oh yeah, 10-7. Sorry.
I think they win 11 games this year. I got to give them the Bears game.
You're going back. All right. Fine. Jamie was 10-7, they said. 10 and wait, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, wait, they're playing 16 games.
No. They're playing
No,
17
they're playing
games.
17 games. My bad. Yeah, 10-7. Bro, it's time to get off here. All right, we hit an hour. That's it. We did it. Mailbag show is done. Thank you for joining the TLR Roundtable. The Lions and Chiefs are tied 7-7 right now in the second quarter. We appreciate you guys watching, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Salute.